Are you a 6 or a counterphobic 6 on the Enneagram or not? Is that my best pondering face? I'm going to do my best to unpack some key insights, 5 in fact, that I've used reliably to crystallize all of these insights to give to you today to help you on this journey of self-discovery. So I'm going to share with you a little soundbite, a metaphor that I think really helps 6s to go, that I relate to. And importantly, we're going to be covering the 2 expressions of 6, phobic 6 and counter-phobic 6. And this is where most of the mistyping of 6 happens, because tests don't accurately or at all cover the counterphobic expression. So counterphobic 6s are often mistyped as 8s. So that's going to be very important. It will make this video slightly longer because we will have to bounce between phobic and counterphobic variations, but I think it's going to be super important. One of the other reasons it's going to be important is because phobic and counterphobic expressions are like a continuum, and even more phobic 6s who are in their fear can have days when they feel more counterphobic. So the long and short of that is that if you've heard of fear showing up as fight or flight, and these days they've added freeze and a couple of other expressions, but the basic ones, fight and flight, are both fear responses. Think of phobic 6, phobic, the word phobic like phobia, in the fear. That is a fear response. It is more flight. It is more run from or feel smaller, yes? Whereas the counterphobic expression, it's almost as if our counterphobic 6 has tilted into fight mode because of the vulnerability and because of being tired of being in the flight mode. So it's still fear, but it expresses more aggressively, which is why it can look like an 8 but not be an 8. I'm going to stack onto that a very key insight, which is the blue pill teaching. And we're going to layer on top of that the polarity teaching, the polarity of the 6. And I'm going to show you the difference between phobic and counterphobic and how those polarities work. I'm also going to touch into the harmonic of the type, which is going to give you just another layer of clue. And finally, we'll put a bow on it and look at the growth path of a 6. And this is where you're going to really have an opportunity to go, yeah, that final piece, that final clue is either gives me confidence that I'm on the right track, that I absolutely think 6 is it, or, Cole, not much was landing and now that doesn't land at all. It's going to help you to distinguish whether in fact you are a beautiful 6 or not. So picture a chair, like I'm sitting on my chair at the moment. 6, both phobic and counterphobic 6. And I'm going to show you the difference between them using the metaphor. The yearning, the search for the 6 is looking for a chair I can trust. It's like I want something to have my back. I want reliable, trustworthy support so that I can lean back, so that I can relax, so that I can be at peace. So our 6s want this. Phobic 6 still believes it's possible to find. Counterphobic 6, the chairs have broken too many times. Now our counterphobic expression gets up, kicks the chair. I don't need the chair. I'm fine on my own. But both have been through the process of I've been looking for a chair I can trust. Both test the chair, like bouncing on the chair, poking it, checking it, because, and you'll see when we connect this to the pearl, our 6s are wired as a blue pearl, and a blue pearl is all about, can I trust you? There's a need for safety. There's a fear element in there. So I'm looking for a chair I can trust. I'm looking for it. Phobic still believes it's possible. Counter-phobic is kicking the chair because too many life experiences have contributed to shifting into the fight mode instead of the flight mode. How's that landing for you so far? Now, no need to make it a decision, any decisions yet. We are going to just be stacking this onto each other, layering one step at a time. Let's look at the blue pearl now. So I created the metaphor of the pearl for a very specific reason. You know how a pearl is formed because a little grain of sand irritates the oyster. And so the oyster starts to coat that in layers upon layers upon layers until a beautiful pearl is formed as a form of protection. So that grain of sand in the center that you cannot see anymore is the reason for the pearl. Now, when we think that Enneagram types are based on what we do, we miss it entirely. It's a way to easily get confused and lost and to be mistyped, because the Enneagram types are not based on what we do. They're based on why we do what we do. And that can be found in the pearl, in the grain of sand that created the pearl specifically, which means that it is hidden. It means that it's buried under layers. It means it does take some reflecting, thinking, pondering, consideration, and some digging to find clues to find it. We can't just decide, I do that, I relate to this, I relate to that, and either give up on the Enneagram because it sounds like we're everything, or just pick one because it's the closest to what we think. Instead, I invite you to learn, to discover, and through that learning, you'll have enough understanding to decide for yourself, because after all, you will be the most in touch with your deeper reasons, even if they're hidden or even if they're unconscious. So let's understand the pearl, because this is now a very big key, isn't it? So your 5, 6, and 7 all share the same blue pearl, but 6 on the Enneagram expresses it differently to a 5 and a 7 and copes with it differently. And when we add the polarity to the pearl, we understand the type. So let's look. What we mean by head. So think of 3 centers of intelligence: gut intelligence, heart intelligence, and headspace intelligence. They're all kinds of mind in a way, if you want to stretch the language. So this is, if you're a blue pearl and if you're a 6, this is your center of gravity. It's a big influence on your decisions. Yes, you may still have gut instinct. Yes, you still have a heart. We all do. We have heart, we have gut, we all have mind. But the mind is the big driver. It's thinking, processing, weighing up. I sometimes call it making essays in the mind, right? Because that's how the mind works. It wants to process through a lot of data. So this is the center of gravity. It's a big driver. And yes, it is connected to fear. Now, low volume to high volume is a key insight. And what I mean by this is not all of us relate to the word fear, at least not all the time. But if you turn the volume down on fear, what do you get? You get jittery, doubt, even procrastination. You get nervousness, caution, that feeling of unease. That's all an expression of fear, just low volume. You turn the volume up on fear, and you can get something more paralyzing. You can get proper anxiety attacks or terror. Now, who knows where you find yourself on any given day, but a blue pill knows that this is what's underneath, the potential to move on this continuum. And it's actually an opportunity to be kind to yourself, a good friend to yourself, to understand that it's like learning about how your software works. It's like, hey, this is something to be kind and to understand. I have a program that it has a fear capacity, and it's connected to thoughts and thinking, and my mind is trying to help me ease my fear. And now we add another layer, which is separation. So what we mean by separateness or separation is actually just a simple function of the mind. When you think about being a young kid, when we were young, we were taught how to separate things, how to separate the letter A from the letter B, how to tell them apart. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to communicate. We wouldn't be able to read. So this separating function of the mind is so useful. What happens for our six is that the separating, if the fear levels go up and there's a lack of innate confidence, both phobic and counterphobic expressions can start feeling separateness from any form of threat. So that can become divisive. It can become us and them. Like, are you with me or against me? Right? So this whole feeling of belonging and creating allies and moving into separating from, especially, and this is quite an important insight, and it helps, many of my six clients, this is quite an epiphany for them. Because we live in a world where authority and power are often abused, there can feel for the mind of a six like a separating from and a polarizing against authority or power, especially for the counterphobic expression. Now, phobic expression may still want the protection of authority, want the big chair, to feel safe with. But if those chairs have broken, there can be a kicking of the big chair for counterphobic. And even phobic is still struggling with this, and often struggling with this idea of power and authority. And it's actually part of the healing of a six to reclaim their own inner authority in a healthy, beautiful way. So that's this little side note around how separateness works and can express itself. And finally, there's the word information. Both our phobic and counterphobic expressions of six use information in order to feel safe. So information gathering, making sure I know, which is the demanding of transparency, of course, and also tells you why our sixes very much are asking questions, questioning the questions, thinking about the thinking, yes, because it's part of how our sixes look for a sense of safety. So how is that landing for you as an understanding of blue pearl as it shows up in our sixes? Now what we need to do is link it to the polarity. So when we link the polarity, we want to now separate out phobic from counterphobic, because both are ultimately driven by I'm looking for support and I don't want to be unsupported. But remember, the chair metaphor is that our counterphobic has become disillusioned and disappointed in the support they've had, and therefore is moving into a more aggressive kick the chair. And what you'll see there is that therefore the polarity statement that I use for counterphobic is I'm fearless, not afraid. And you'll see the pose and the cartoon and everything that I've described counterphobic six. It shares the blue pearl, it shares some of the common ground, it shares the same harmonic, the same growth path, but the polarity starts to change. Sometimes I even, and I'm of course not 100% sure about this, but it's my current understanding, is that it feels to me that phobic 6 is one movement of the pendulum swing, and that counterphobic is a second movement. It's a more aggressive pull away from fear. And so this is why my opinion is that when a 6 heals and claims their wholeness and does a lot of growth work, which sixes love learning and growing usually, there's almost a softening back into from counterphobic to phobic and then settling. But we'll discuss that perhaps when we look at the growth path. For now, if we look at the polarity, let's look at how this polarity of support versus a lack of support shows up, and specifically how it's connected to the pearl. So if a 6 is looking for that chair, and of course, please remember, the chair is a metaphor for relationship, for people, for trustworthy information, for anything I feel like it has my back. This is the mind looking for support. So this is not something that is just guessed at. There needs to be proper information to prove. So this is why our 6s are questioning, because it's like, I'm checking, how did you say that? Why did you say that? What did you mean by that? Why was your voice different? Is there an inconsistency here? It's information, it's mind. And there's this, am I separate to this support? Or am I belonging where there is support? So the separating can also feel like the anxiety of the mind moving into a place of, do I agree, don't I agree? Where the mind itself is experienced as like a chandelier, where we're looking through each lens. I heard that from my friend and colleague, Dr. Pam Rue, who I originally learned the Enneagram from, describing the 6 as a mind as a very beautiful chandelier. And there's this moving from one crystal lens to the other, this feeling of movement in the mind, which creates unsteady ground for our 6s who are looking for which lens can I trust, separating out the details, spotting the difference. Remember that little game we used to play, spot the difference, where you have two pictures or photos or cartoons and you have to find what's different. That's the mind of the 6, very good at doing that. Whereas we compare that to our counterphobic, which is fearless and afraid. Here the mind is almost banishing fear, even though it is underneath. I will not be afraid. Separating from that chair, kicking the chair, still looking for information, but far more aggressively, demanding transparency with a fierce sword of questioning, challenging authority, proving to oneself, I am not afraid. I won't be that doormat. And it's a kind of fierce independence, whereas our phobic 6 moves between independence and dependence. So if we look at some of the phobic 6 keywords, you have a lot of what ifs. Now both phobic and counterphobic, very good at contingency planning, right? Very good at what could go wrong. So I'm going to plan it out. I'm going to think through all the scenarios. It's an anticipation of the worst that can happen in the future to make sure it doesn't. A lot of doubt, a lot of thinking, as I said, a lot of questioning, a kind of diligence, fierce discernment. There can be a feeling of worrying, very much defending a point of view, but also being willing to learn, asking for feedback. One of the strengths of 6 is please give me feedback. Planning, fierce loyalty, giving support as well as looking for it, testing, bouncing on the chair, testing. Can I trust this? Now you'll look at the counterphobic and you can see some of the same themes. except with a slightly different expression or like a second polarizing. So here we have challenging, still doubt, but less doubt. Okay, so I've removed the word doubt as a big word. Challenging and championing a cause. So counterphobic sixes often are feeling protective, championing the cause, demanding transparency, also asking a lot of questions, protecting the underdog. Protecting the underdog and the powerless is a huge theme. Now, our phobic six also speaks for the powerless and the underdog, speaks for the servant, speaks for the person who is lower down in the hierarchies of life, wants equality, wants inclusivity, but your counterphobic takes it on as a mission and becomes much more assertive, almost like your cancel culture energy, fighting, still loyal, still planning, very much discerning as well, thinking, but with this more aggressive tone. Do you have a sense of this? I hope this is helpful. Let me know. Would love to hear some of your questions and comments, but this should give you some of the solid understanding. Now we're going to layer 2 more pieces on to really crystallize this as a complete tutorial. Of the many wonderful teachings that the teachers of the Enneagram, Riso and Hudson, brought, the harmonic teaching is one of my favorites. And I'm going to show you how I've turned the teaching into a simplified with a Cole teaching with some alliteration, be warned, yes. And let's see how you relate to the harmonic that 6 on the Enneagram belongs to. So types 4, 6, and 8 belongs to what is classically referred to as the reactive harmonic. But for the sake of alliteration and simplification, I call it the Purge Harmonic. And that is to help my students to remember more easily that you've got a positivity harmonic, you've got a practical harmonic, and of course this one, the Purge Harmonic. So the Purge Harmonic means that if you're a 6 on the Enneagram, or an 8 or a 4, but remember the one is blue, one's green, and the one is a red pearl, so we need to always go back to that. As a 6 on the Enneagram, what it means to be in the Purge Harmonic is that this is the first thing that is needed in order to feel connected, bonded. So when we connect to someone, when we begin bonding, when we start sharing, when we start being with people, the Purge Harmonic wants to have some space to share. So purging as in venting. Now, a green pearl, 4, purges from the green pearl, from the emotions in the heart. An 8 pearl purges from the red pearl, like a bit of a moan, a little bit of irritation, frustration moment. A 6 wants to purge their thoughts, their concerns, their questions. They want to have the mind share that they need in order to feel safe in the space. If, for whatever reason, everybody jumps straight into positivity, uplifting, happiness, affirmation, validation, or straight into let's get things done, let's move the dial, let's move things forward, your your Purge Harmonics for 6 and 8 will feel like something's missing. I needed that moment to really feel connected to the group or to this person. Now, if you do relate to that, you can give another clue to being amongst this group and possibly 6. If that's like, no, Cole, I'm never about having a quick little share. Or obviously, if you are a 6, you're going to say to me, Cole, depends if I feel safe or not, of course. But let's assume you do. Check if that is something that would be natural for you and important for you or not. So use this harmonic understanding as another way to gather some clues. And let's have a look at your growth path now. Let's put a beautiful bow on this by looking at how a 6 grows by opening a door to 9. So I use the language of a door being open and a door being closed to really understand that we don't change types. A 6 doesn't go to 9 or become a 9. Think of it as a pathway or an energy or a circuitry connection. Turns out, at least the way I've come to understand it over many years, is that the low expression and the high expression of the type really depends on how open that door is. If the door is completely closed, everything about 9 on the Enneagram will then be lacking in the 6. And that 9 quality is necessary to balance the 6 and help the 6 to grow. If you think about finding a beautiful apple tree in your garden, if the apple tree looked like it needed water, it looked like it needed some light, that's our way of knowing what it needs to grow. This doorway tells us what each Enneagram type needs to grow to its highest, fullest, whole expression. So all we need to do to benefit from this understanding is think about what a lack of healthy 9 looks like. And that's how we know what a low-functioning 6 experiences. A low-functioning 6, whether counter-phobic or phobic, experiences a lack of peace, true peace, a lack of being able to go with the flow. Our 6s find it difficult to let go and let live. The mind wants to run round and around that circle 100 times, question it and question it again, looking for solutions, looking for transparency, looking for information. Whereas the 9 is the ability to go, I've looked at it enough, now it's time to just let the river flow. 9 has an element of trusting one's being, trusting one's sense of self, being able to be in the present moment, being able to relax, being less complicated, just enjoying slowing down, for example. So when a 6 is at their lowest expression, there's no sense of slow down. There's just this train going faster and faster of the mind. So this slowing down, this being in the body, this being very present. And our 6s, my clients will tell me, my beautiful 6 clients will tell me, sometimes even they'll find activities like exercise or pottery or even washing the dishes as a meditation, as a way to escape the busy mind, to escape the busy thoughts. And that all relates to the ability to access 9. Once that door is open, you have all of the best of 6, the humility, the beautiful wanting to be useful in the world, wanting to be of service, the discernment, the loyalty, all of that, and the ability to ground, the ability to slow down, the ability to relax, the ability to access knowing and not just knowledge, and to have faith in oneself as you know yourself instead of thinking and knowledge alone. So does that make sense? How do you relate to this growth path? Has it helped you to clarify your 6 Enneagram expression, or has it cast more doubts and allowed you to be more clear that it's not your expression? And of course, so important to remember, at least the way I've come to understand it, that you are always more than your Enneagram type. Your personality is in you. You are not locked inside your personality. This is an opportunity, therefore, to be a kind friend to yourself, to see this as you would an apple tree in your garden with kindness, and to just use this knowledge to think about, what does this need? What does my beautiful apple tree personality need in order to flourish, in order to grow. I hope this has served you. I hope this has helped clarify. If it has, you know what to do. All those good things, like, subscribe, or perhaps send this to somebody who may also need this information today.